most recruiters and recruiting leaders and recruiting marketers are guessing. They just put stuff out there in the hopes that something happens, and that's what it is. And I want to get you off that treadmill. I want to get you away from that, because the truth is some very basic research will allow you to stop guessing. And we're going to talk very specifically about a use case and an example of how this all works. With good research comes better hiring outcomes for your hiring managers, for your company, and for you. And that's really where we want to get you. So to get there, we have to start on the same page. We're going to make sure we're on the same place. And that same page is this idea. You get what you ask for. If you post about how you want incredibly aggressive, cutthroat salespeople, that's who's going to apply. If you talk about how you have a great culture and you have all these awards and everybody's a family, you're going to get people who want a comfortable job. That may not be what you actually want or what your hiring managers actually want. Very often we end up putting nice things up there because we don't know what else to say. So we just say nice things and we wonder why we're not getting what we're looking for. So your message matters. You get exactly what you ask for. So that means if we're smart about it, we want to change what we ask for to get what we really want, or more to the point, what our hiring managers really want, right? Isn't that really the goal here? So to get there, we're going to ask two basic questions. The first is, how do we know what we're currently asking for? Recruiting and all this content we put out there, it's a lot. It's a lot. You got career sites and job postings and outreach and LinkedIn and social media and YouTube and Glassdoor and all these other places we're putting stuff out. And very often we think about our content, we think about it in terms of this tiny little piece. What is this LinkedIn post? What is this headline on our career site? What is this one thing? What is this one piece of outreach? The truth is, candidates see it all, right? If they see your job or they see your company and they say, I want to learn more, they do what everybody does. They Google you and they have an open mind. They try to absorb as much information about you as possible. They're trying to affix a label to you to say, oh, this is the company that moves fast and break things. Oh, no, this is the company that's super, super stable and doing things right. Oh, no, this is the company that's all collaborative. No, this is the company that whatever. They're trying to put a label on you. And when you're inside the pickle jar, it's really hard to see your own label. Let's be fair. Like when you say you're innovative, I don't doubt that for a second, but you actually know what that means because you're inside the company. You have all this knowledge about what all those things mean, what you can read between the lines, right? You have more information about the company, but someone from the outside sees that stuff and says, I don't know what that means. So it's really hard to know what you're actually asking for off the bat. Second, what should we ask for to get what we actually want? And these seem like simple questions, but they're really not. These aren't rhetorical questions. These are things we can actually use research to answer in a fairly definitive manner. So to do this the right way, let's use an example, like a real world example. We're going to use a company called TMX Group, which up until a week and a half ago, I had never heard of before. Zero information about, I don't know anybody who works there. I'm not connected to anybody over there. No connection whatsoever. They are a financial service company. They make software that runs trading markets. 2,100 people based in Toronto, and they're currently hiring 86 people, mostly in the analysts and engineering space. Now, because I don't know anything about this company, I have zero insider information about this company, which is perfect to illustrate exactly how research is going to help us out. Because, as I said, candidates don't just look at a career site or look at a headline and go, oh, I know what that company is all about. They certainly don't look at a job posting that way, and they absolutely don't look at your outreach that way. What they do is they look at the sum total of everything that you're saying, and they try to put that label on you. Oh, this is a company that's X, whatever that X might be. So what we need is some technology that actually helps us see your company like a candidate would. And that's not just going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, tell me what our company's like. Because let's be fair, when you say that, what's it looking at? You don't know. But if you have some scraping tools and some automation tools that will literally grab every piece of copy on your career site, every piece of copy on your culture page, every piece of copy on your About Us section, everything on your LinkedIn, your last 50 LinkedIn posts, 3 different jobs, scraping all these things, and then feeds it back into an LLM and do some pattern recognition, suddenly you can kind of say, okay, in the aggregate, this is what this company is saying. That means regardless of what HR agreed to say and what legal said and com said over there. You scrape all this stuff together. This is what a candidate is taking away about this company. So what did we learn about TMX Group? Well, we learned that TMX positions itself as an integrated, purpose-driven financial technology company, which is, by my lights, a little bit of word salad at this stage, right? It's a lot of words. That's some really nice words, really pretty words. They're all attractive-ish, but they're not giving me a label. They're not giving me a picture of what it's like to be here. And if you look at the second section, you can see that TMX's current messaging targets a financial change agent persona, someone who's purpose-driven, finance meets tech professional who values both stability and innovation. And honestly, I started to see some real red flags here because they're trying to say they value both stability and innovation. A company that is stable is rarely innovating. The company that is innovating is rarely stable. And so when I see this as a candidate, I might go, yeah, I'm okay. I'll walk away. If we want to fix this, what will we want to do? Well, I think the first thing we want to do is understand the market we're trying to reach. And we might say if we're trying to hire in Toronto, primarily analysts and engineers, we might look at 4 sectors. Now, this isn't exhaustive. This is just the first 4 sectors we thought of. We said, well, obviously they're going to talk to bankers, banking people, and fintech people, and SaaS people because they need engineers and analysts, and consulting people. Cool. Except we all probably would agree, after a drink or two, that people who are in banking and people who are in fintech are not the same people, right? They have proclivities. They have ways they do things, different motivations. We all have a picture of what a banker looks like. We all have a picture of what a fintech person looks like. We all have that picture. They're all biases. I'm not saying they're wrong, but they're not necessarily the most accurate pictures. What if we could actually learn what people in banking and fintech and consulting and SaaS cared about? You know what? I'm going to take that a step further. What if we could pick 3 companies in banking who are about the same size as TMX, so they're at the same stage of the same company size, and who are headquartered in Toronto, right? So we're not talking how do we benchmark against Apple and Amazon. We're talking about these are neighbors. These are people that TMX Group absolutely knows every single one of those companies and is probably actively hiring against as we speak. And let's do that. Let's do 3 companies in fintech, 3 companies in consulting, 3 companies in SaaS. Again, roughly the same size, either headquartered or have a very large presence in Toronto. These are direct competitors. And if we take those 12 companies and break them into their industries and say, same process, scrape their content, do a pattern recognition analysis and understand exactly what they're saying so that we understand the difference between fintech and banking, we might learn some very interesting things like this. We see that banking talks about being and wanting well-rounded people, right? Early career analysts are engineers who seek security and support, but flexibility. Okay, that's very different from fintech who want to disrupt everything, right? They love that purpose-driven idea, but they're going to revolutionize an industry. They're going to tip over the apple cart to make change happen, which is the same but different from the SaaS people who want to build things, right? Fintech is disrupting, SaaS is about building. They also want that same sense of creative problem solving and innovation, but they're seeing it from a different point of view. They're motivated by different things. And then, of course, compare that to the consulting sector where it's leader problem solvers, people with academic backgrounds who are really looking for a really strong career trajectory. So here's the thing. That's useful information. Again, it's all external data. I don't know any of the companies I identified and used them, but I identified them and scraped all their content and did the analysis. But now let's say, now that we know this, let's understand what the gap between what those industries are talking about and where TMX is. And we get this. So it turns out that TMX is primarily speaking to banking type people, but there's a big problem. Right? Yeah, banking loves the idea of, traditional and hierarchical in structure, but TMX talks about bold ideas, which kind of throws banking for a loop. They go, oh, wait, hold on. It's a bit of a fly in the soup here. What's going on? I don't know that I want bold ideas. I'm in banking. Fintech's the other side, right? They love the idea of that purpose, but they really don't like the establishment-driven messaging. SaaS loves the entrepreneurial spirit. They like the bold ideas, but again, that tone is formal. It's very finance-oriented. It's kind of leaving a bad taste in their mouth. And consulting, well, sure, yeah, they want impact and growth and all that good stuff, but not in a balanced communal way. What they want is something where they can really kind of stand out in a crowd. They want that standout achievement. They want that personal challenge. So you can see very clearly, based on external data, we can see that TMX is having an awful Problem, engaging these audiences. It's doing okay in banking, but it could do way better. So we're not quite done yet. Let's figure out how to put TMX back in the game. How do we help position TMX to actually say the things that will appeal to these audiences so they can attract the people they actually want and make better hiring decisions, put themselves in a better position? So what we want to do, obviously, is rewrite TMX stuff. But anybody who's been through a career site journey knows that this is where the wheels fall off the wagon, right? You put a bunch of people in a room and you say, what's great about us? What's wonderful about us? And you get all this stuff and you get all this wonderful platitudes, and everybody kind of groups up and they say, oh, I like these words and I like these words and I like these words. And you get all this different stuff, and you either decide one person is right and one person is wrong, almost never happens, or you just glue it all together. So what we did is I said, how would I say this in a bunch of different ways? So I put together 4 different statements that are effectively the same, but slightly different, right? We're a global client-facing team connecting markets and communities, or we're a global fintech team using data, code, and first principles thinking, or we're a global product team at the intersection of finance and tech, or we're a global team of problem solvers working on some of the economy's most critical systems. The ideas are the same functionally, but the way we're portraying them is different. Now, if you've ever been in that career site meeting, you'll understand that once you get to this stage, you're toast, because then it becomes a game of who's the highest paid person's opinion, right? The hippo always wins. The senior vice president, or whatever the heck it is, says, I like that. And that's the end of the conversation. Are they right? I don't know. And don't worry, neither do they. But again, if we have research, we can stop guessing, because the truth is this idea comes straight off of TMX's website. The current line is, we're a global team connected across multiple industries and geographies, united by a common purpose to make markets better and empower bold ideas. And I'm so glad that they capitalized all those words for some reason. I don't know why they would do that, but there they are. We could rewrite that same idea, same core thought process, but speak to 4 different audiences. So those 4 languages weren't random or arbitrary. They were there to speak to different audiences. You speak it as to a banking audience about the idea about making markets safer and fairer and better for businesses and investors so the economies can grow. You say that to a SaaS person by talking about product teams to make markets better and turn bold ideas into tools used around the world. Same idea spoken 4 different ways to appeal to 4 different audiences. Suddenly, you're not guessing. We could do it again. Current TMX language is we move opportunity into action. And I've never heard that phrase, opportunity into action. I don't know what that is, word salad, just in 4 words. That's amazing. But anyways, a whole lot of word salad, a whole lot of words, a whole lot of nice things. But once you understand who you're speaking to and you can target that idea of what you're trying to say, not only are you speaking better and more effectively, you're also speaking faster. Every one of these statements is 20 to 40% shorter than those 2 sentences at the top, but saying the same idea. They're not gluing together 17 different thoughts in the hopes that someone will pay attention to it. They go, no, we're talking to fintech. We know what they care about. We know what they want. We know how to speak to them. Now imagine this for your recruiters, because the hiring manager just said, oh yeah, we need someone straight out of fintech to do this coding. Great. I will say this, and I will not say these other things in my outreach, in my job posting. Heck, I could make a landing page just for fintech audiences or just for SaaS audiences. Suddenly, I'm speaking more of their language and they are engaging. They're interested. They understand what we're talking about. They're more interested in what we have to say. Because remember, candidates understand who you are by everything you say or do, not just the top line of the job posting, not just your heroes section of your career site. So if you understand what you're about and you understand who you're trying to talk to, you can thread it through everything in the journey so that the candidate goes, I get what this company's all about. And it doesn't take a lot. It just takes small changes across the journey to completely change people's perceptions about who you are as an employer, what you offer, why they should fall in love with this company. And you do that through some very simple research. Now, this research allows us to do things like understand how you're seen, that whole reading the label from outside the pickle jar. How are you positioned? How do people see you? What are you saying? What is the aggregate message being put out there? And then how do you compare against other companies? And maybe it's your top 5 or top 10 competitor set, or maybe it's 3 different industries like we did for TMX. But you need to understand, because hiring is a zero-sum game. If someone hires person X, you can't. So you aren't there to be the best. You're there to beat your competitors. That's how you win. And finally, once you understand how you're positioned and how you frame that, you can make better content and make better language choices in order to win. Because ultimately, like I said, like we started, you get what you ask for. So you got to know what you're asking for to get who you really want.